Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
Thanks to TriBooth, the best vocal booth for home or on-the-road voice recording. Introducing Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. Tech to the VO stars, George the Tech Whittam from LA. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
And welcome to another Pro Audio Suite. Don't forget, if you want to buy yourself a TriBooth, use the code PAP200 to get $200 off. That's 200 US. We have a question for this week's episode. Robbo,
we do. Before I read the question, though, I've got to give a bit of a shout out to my missus. She's been doing voiceovers for about 6 or 7 years now. She's picked up her first big contract for a pay TV kiddie channel out of Hong Kong. The last week or two. So
the Cartoon Network.
Indeed. So congratulations to my missus. Well done.
Well done today.
Indeed.
Excellent.
So on to other business, though. The question says, and George, it's a good thing you're here. I'd love to know how to treat my room without spending thousands of dollars and without access to consultants since I live in a provincial city. So I got a few things that come to mind, but George, you're the obvious one to throw that to.
Yeah.
You got to fill in the blank on what it means to be from a provincial city. What does that mean?
Well, it doesn't mean much these days, does it? That was the first thing that occurred to me, is that really doesn't matter.
No. I mean, I live in a provincial coastal town.
Yeah. So
provincial city is to say a small town?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah,
Gotcha.
But I mean, you could dial in anywhere, really, surely.
Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, speaking for myself as a studio tech and consultant, I definitely support folks everywhere remotely. And there's a lot that can be done remotely. I mean, we don't have to be in person. To be in person is, clearly for a reason. You need to do hands-on installation work, right? And for what we're talking about here is not that. We just want to take what he's starting with and make it better. Every time people ask me this question, I always have to ask more questions, and I know we don't have him here to answer them. So I'll try to give a couple different ideas. But first, if you're starting at the I don't want to spend much money direction, the flip side of that is I don't care what it looks like. Okay, so
yeah.
Well, it has
if you
to
don't
be,
care what
it?
it looks like, right? Then by far the simplest way to get better sound is by using blankets, sound blankets. We call them Fernie pads in Hollywood, moving pads. What do you guys call them down there? Moving pads?
Yeah, moving blankets. Yeah,
moving blankets. Yeah.
Yep.
Except they don't move unless you move.
Right. If you see a moving blanket moving, run the other way.
They're effectively, though, they're the things that when you're moving house and you have the removalists to come and move all your expensive couches and televisions and stuff, they're those blankets that they wrap everything up in to put them in the truck, right?
Unless you use the ones we did when we recently did our renovation, but we won't go into that.
They were a little wet behind the ears, weren't they? Yeah.
Yes, just a tad. Yeah.
No, the best moving companies will wrap all of your things in moving blankets. They'll have very large stacks of them folded up in the truck. Yeah, they work well because they're quilted. They're thicker. They're lined with like a polyfill, so they have some mass or a little bit of weight to them. So you're going to get a lot more. They're a lot more effective than like if you were to just hang up a standard single ply blanket or a towel or blackout drapes, like draperies you'd hang in your bedroom. Those aren't bad either, but these are just much thicker. So you get a lot more echo and reverb control by using these. So this is what I usually start with. In fact, I just got done with a client earlier today with a similar conversation, and this is what I recommended to her as well. Now, stateside, there are some companies that are making furniture blankets or moving pads, moving blankets that are of a much higher grade that are really specifically for audio purposes. So they're quite a bit more expensive and much heavier than a normal, moving blanket would be. But you can get the similar result by just doubling or even tripling up, standard moving blankets. So you're just trying to increase more and more density. So I would start there. You can tack a couple to the walls. You can create basically a framework around you upon which you hang them, and create like an enclosure around you. You can throw them on the floor. If you're sitting on hardwood floor, you can toss one on the floor below where you're seated. But these are an incredibly cost-effective way to knock down a lot of reverb in your space. Okay. So you just want to make sure that any hard reflective surface that's within, a meter or so of your mic is no longer hard. Like a desktop is probably okay, but don't have your microphone directly over the desk. Have it out in front of the desk a little bit. Or don't have the mic sitting directly on the desk. That's not ideal at all. So those are things that are going to help. Next thing from there is going with some more like studio appropriate products, or things that look a little bit more professional. And this is going to partly have to do with what's available to you down in Australia, what companies are shipping products like this. But I really like the panels that are lined with rock wool. I think you guys call it rock wool. We've talked about this in the show before, haven't we? Yeah. So rock wool is an awesome product for absorbing echo and reverb. It does a just amazing job. And you can get panels made. You can make them yourself, or you can find prefabricated panels that are made with this, and they're made with a wooden frame. So they're like these nice wood, I would dare to say almost like a furniture grade product that you can mount on walls. You can even hang from ceilings and get rid of that reflective surface around you, but in a way that looks a little bit more pleasing in a sort of an office environment as opposed to like a recording studio environment.
Sure.
So that's also a really great way to go. Yeah.
Also, mic selection, I think, is probably another thing.
I was going to say that
it's
too.
worth considering. So, you want something that's a shotgun, basically, that's going to have a bit of a tight pattern, so you don't get sort of reflections creeping in behind and whatever.
Yeah. Tighter microphone pickup patterns are always a good idea. I get away with what I get away with in my space because I'm doing that. I'm just in a bedroom, in a 2-bedroom apartment. I've got a couple of acoustical panels scattered around here, not that many actually, and I'm using a lot of practical stuff. I have a futon bed behind me, a carpet on the floor, the closet to my right, about 5-6 feet away, 2 meters or so, is open, but it's full of clothes. So that area over there is not reflecting any sound, right? I just have the more stuff you have in the room and the more soft things you have in the room, the more that's going to help. So I use a combination of a ton of practical stuff, a heavy drape on the window, and then I'm using a shotgun, in this case, a Rode NTG5, closely placed. It's about a fist's width, or maybe a fist and a thumb width away from my mouth. And that tight proximity helps reject even more of the room reflection. So that's another practical thing you can do.
Yep.
Actually, this is a blatant plug, but it's actually not supposed to be a blatant plug. But I had a call or an email from a fellow voiceover talent in Sydney who has the same agent as me and was looking to get some sort of solution for traveling and also recording at home. So I tipped her into the Tri booth, and from what I'm seeing, I think she's actually either she's bought one already or she's about to.
Well, we just shipped one there. That's what I heard from Rick. I just shipped a booth to Australia. Yeah. I didn't catch the name, but
that's the one. Yeah. So, but the thing is, like I sent her a file. She said, "Can you just send me something you've actually recorded in the booth?"
Yeah.
So I just sent her a voiceover I did, which I hadn't done any processing with, anything at all, just raw. And that was when I was in Byron, with the ocean roaring behind me and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she just went, "Yep, okay," and pulled the trigger and bought one. So,
and that was with a 41.6, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The shotgun mics work really well in these blanketed spaces, these little blanket forts. They work exceptionally well. And Tri-Booth is another way to go. It's a more costly way, but it's an easy way because it's turnkey. It's a kit. Everything's in there. You just put your mic up and your laptop and your interface, and everything you need has been thought of because that's what it's designed for, right? So that's a great way to go as well. I just love giving these different perspectives and different price points of ways to solve a problem without just coming off as, well, you must buy a Tri-Booth, of course.
Exactly.
Yes, no, the Tri-Booth is a great product because that's, again, we designed it for that. And that was the whole point of that product. So if you want to see what we're describing to you, just head over to tribooth.com and take a look and see what you can get a description of what we're describing to you guys. You can see it.
Yep. But I think what gives some substance to your even cheaper than a Tri-Booth solution, George, is effectively with the Tri-Booth, all you've done is take moving blankets but use them more effectively to create a space that's even better than just hanging them on the wall.
We've taken the concept of the moving blanket, which we've known as a proven thing. We found the best ones we can possibly find. We refined the way that we hang them. We've created the most efficient use of space.
Yeah.
We've just done a lot of refinements to the concept, but in the end, it's the same idea. And it's just an effective, proven way to get rid of echo without a huge investment in materials and space.
Yeah.
So on top of the space then, if you were on a bit of a budget, but if I already had a booth that I'd sort of thrown together and I wanted to get an idea of what was going on in terms of resonances and sound waves and stuff in my room, is there a cheapish sort of bottom of the ladder software that you'd recommend to grab to sort of give me some sort of visualization of what might be going on and what I need to do if you were on a budget?
Like a visualization of the noise problems?
Yeah. So it's sort of something that shows me, there's a whole bunch of bottom end build up, around, 100 hertz or wherever, that sort of thing.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. A while ago, you mentioned a plugin suite on our show, and I downloaded it. It's called Equalizer?
Melda Productions.
Yes. I was really impressed with their stuff. Really impressed.
And most of it's free.
And a lot of it's free or darn near close to it. Mm-hmm. And if I recall, I haven't used it in a while, but if I recall, it had a really good RTA or an analyzer.
Yep.
So you not only have a control over the EQ, you can also see what frequencies are giving you trouble. So yeah, I would say that would be a really smart way to go, And then we were just talking about it before the show. We've already been introduced to a plugin called Waves Clarity VX. So if you've done all of this and no matter what, you can't deal with, like I got neighbors outside right now talking their heads off, right? Oh my God. At the end of the day, nothing you can do to get rid of that noise and you got to get it done, Waves Clarity VX plugin is I'm curious to see if you use it on my track today.
Probably will.
It's an amazing tool to pull the voice above the noise and separate the voice out from the noise. It's a pretty miraculous tool. So if you're stuck, you might want to try that one and see if you can recover an unusable audio file.
I reckon you'd be able to. I was just saying before we started recording that I gave Clarity my first sort of real test just yesterday. I was working on some stuff that had been recorded to camera during the thunderstorms that we had here in Sydney a week or so ago. And so there's pouring rain and cars driving past on the road with, a wet road with a shh as they go by. And you would never know it. It went after a bit of, tiny, just a twist of a couple of knobs, which is what blew me away. And bang, it was just gone. It was crazy.
Man, it's awesome. Are you using the Clarity VX or the VX
I had
Pro
VX
version?
running to do that. Just just because I wanted a little bit more control over what it was doing. But I loved it. Loved it. Amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to solve two things: noise and reverb or echo. Right. And we use different tools to fix those two problems. I don't know of a plugin that can get rid of the echo and the reverb yet that does it without causing like artifacts. So that's really your main thing to take care of. room tone, yeah, we want it to be as quiet as we can, but we know there's only so much we can do to control that. And soundproofing is really expensive, right, Andrew?
Yes. And if you did soundproofing properly, forget it. It's ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. So, do what you can, but don't lose sleep over a little bit of room tone or some interruption. Nowadays, we do have plugins that can clean that stuff up if you're the one that has to deliver a ready for air, quote unquote, file.
Can you just answer this for me too? I mean, my thoughts, and I'd be interested in yours, George, is for me, I would be suggesting that if you're going to splurge on anything, don't worry so much about the room within reason. Like obviously you don't want a big reflective room, but if you're going to spend more on anything, spend more on your mic and get a good start there and then do what you can around it to begin with. Would you agree with that?
Yes and no. I think you'd still need to put some effort into the room acoustics. And you have to know what you can get away with, right? Like I know I'm getting away with a lot with my space. I am not in a controlled environment. I know I'm not in a recording studio. I'm working in sort of like a pretty tweaked, but still just an office and a bedroom, right? A lot of it's just knowing what you can get away with. But if you have done some due diligence to deal with some of the reverb, then you can spend more money on the microphone. But don't go spending $1,000 to $3,000 on a microphone and ignore the room acoustics and the treatment, because that's not going to help either. You know, you do have to pay some attention to it.
I only say this because I worked with someone who works for one of the top agencies here in Australia just a couple of weeks ago. And I was talking to Andrew about this too. And that really good voice, really well-renowned agency that they work for. And he was on a USB mic and all his S's had this weird sort of sucked out sound to them that I had to go in and fix. And I just thought, surely you could do better than that, given the money that you're earning on this, on this job alone.
Some USB mics, and we've tested them, some of them do have processing built in. And you got to watch out, because if you don't know that it's on and it's not set up right, it's going to do some weird stuff. So that could have been happening, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? Because I've heard USB mics sound awesome. I mean, I know that the Apogee mic, when used correctly, can sound great. Sennheiser makes the MK4 Digital, which is a $400, Sennheiser USB mic. They can sound really good. But at the end of the day, you got to use a decent quality mic that's not degrading the sound. It's got to have a pretty clear, clean, accurate pickup of the voice. Yeah. With no distortion,
Yeah, this thing wasn't terrible, but it certainly needed work. And it was nothing even remotely close to what Andrew puts out on a daily basis.
Right.
And maybe I'm just spoilt for working with Andrew so much that I've got pretty high expectations. But this, it was weird. But anyway, there you go.
Mm-hmm. I just find it, I don't know. I just find a lack of respect when you deliver poor audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like basically you're saying, I can't be bothered, you fix it. I don't like that. I don't think that's fair.
If I went on Fiverr, perhaps, or something like that, and I got the audio that I got from this person, I would possibly expect it. But when I'm paying full flight agency fees, and he's getting paid the same rate, even though he didn't have to leave his house, I kind of think, well, you could at least do me the favor of making sure that what you're sending me is the equivalent of walking into a studio.
Well, they've probably gotten some poor advice from their management, right? Because there's a degree of like, sometimes I try not to assume it's the actor, lack of caring, and maybe it's a little bit of ignorance about what is good enough, but if they're told, just get this mic, it's fine, then somebody's doing them a disservice. I don't know if it's the management or whoever. Somebody's giving them the wrong advice. But if they're going out and just, what's the cheapest mic I can buy to do a voiceover? I gotta do these damn things at home now. Okay,
yes, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
They would have. I reckon it was probably when they went to buy it. I think it's probably the retail issue that someone's just said this will do the trick.
Well, that's another issue, right? If you go into a music store, Because let's face it, there's no voiceover recording stores except for Harlan Hogan's place. If you're going into brick and mortar stores, they're not going to know what is really needed. And they might send you home with a podcasting mic, which it'll get you by, but it may end up sounding something like what Robbo's describing, which isn't going to sound too studio-like, because a podcast mic has a different objective than a studio mic, which is designed to capture everything with total clarity, whereas a podcast mic or a broadcast mic is really meant to pick up voice, reject everything else, and maybe not do it in the best possible fidelity. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Now, I just sent you guys a photograph of just a setup I have outside the booth, so to keep strangers out of my space.
He's got all protective of his room lately. You were telling me.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't want your germs. And plus, I don't want people moving my mics and stuff. So I've got the sort of a booth outside the booth, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. It's made out of a Max wall, I think, is what that is.
Yeah, it's Promax, 2 Promax panels and a bunch of Auralex on the ceiling and the walls. That works a treat. Absolutely perfect.
Are you in there now?
Foam. Yeah.
No, I'm not actually. If you knew where I was, you'd be horrified. I'm actually sitting out with a hard desk and computer screens in front of me, a laptop. Yeah.
Well, the acoustical foam from Auralex, if you're going to go with foam, you want to make sure it's foam that was designed for acoustics by a company that knows what they're doing, and they actually measure the performance of their stuff. And Auralex does that. So the problem with foam is there's a huge amount of really cheap foam out there that is not much better than the foam on your windscreen. So it doesn't really stop anything acoustically. It just lets the sound pass right on through.
Yeah.
It's like acoustically translucent. So you need the right kind of foam if you do use foam. Auralex clearly is one of those companies that know how to make acoustical foam. That's their main thing.
Yeah, and it works.
The reason I was asking, AP, was because I have noticed only a couple of little reflections during this, which surprised me. So when you sent that photo, I thought, I wonder if you're in there. But yeah.
No, I'm just sitting up in front of the computers and stuff.
Yeah. See? Good mic technique.
Do you know what amazes me about you, though, AP, is like you're in the worst spot you could possibly in your studio, and I still struggle to pick it. It's crazy.
Yes.
Crazy.
Exactly. All right. Well, hopefully we've answered that question. But
there was a question, wasn't there? Yes. Very good.
Yeah, that's right. Another ramble. Anyway, get yourself a tri booth. Just shell the couch. Just do it.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite, with thanks to Tribooth. Recorded using Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging. With tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, theproaudiosuite.com.